think it's a defining moment for our nation, quite frankly, that we approach homeland security from in many respects, and basically the growth and development of this nation in a very humane way. I come from New York City, which is a gateway for many immigrants, many waves of immigrants over many generations, and certainly we have felt the impact of what I consider, quite frankly, a governmental problem. The infrastructure, the bureaucratic infrastructure that should have been in place and that needs to be in place today in order to really regulate immigration to this nation has faltered. And so my question really has to do with the capacity building that needs to happen within our own government to handle what we found ourselves in terms of a real quandary and what we look at going forward. I think to a large extent your legislation begins to address that, but I'd like to see the nuts and bolts of it really put in place, because that is what we're going to inherit. The next generation is going to inherit, as opposed to some of the xenophobic types of reactions that I've seen. I don't live on the southern border. And so the types of reactions that I hear from many of our colleagues, while I'm sympathetic to it, I come from a totally different environment where the reaction is not quite the same. I want to just speak to you at a certain point about the whole touchback provision, because touchback on the southern end is a lot different than touchback on the northern end. And there are a lot of folks who want to come into compliance with what we're talking about here, but touchback for them is a challenge, because the way that they got here was either as a visitor, as you said, or as a foreign student, as you've stated, and they came here legally, usually by airline and not by foot. And so just the whole idea of, well, you can maybe touch back in Canada or you can maybe touch back in Mexico. I don't know how those governments will feel about other folks from other nations touching back, or whether they would be in cooperation with us, regardless of where people come from, about the touchback provision. I think we need to take another look at that and try to fine-tune it to a certain degree to address the nuances of the variety of immigrants that we have coming to our nation, or who have come to this nation and are not in compliance with our laws. I want to thank you once again. Your work has been tremendous. And I look forward to working closer with you in terms of the fine-tuning. We got to deal with Homeland Security. That is a key piece to this. The bureaucracy of our federal government has to be dealt with. Thank you, Madam Chair.